Welcome to the Krusty Fox, and in the first of a new series, we're going to cast a critical eye over the first season of Love is Blind. Or as it should be known, Love isn't blind, but let's exploit some idiots anyway. In this installment, we're going to look at the first stage, the pods. In case you've so far managed to avoid it, Love is Blind calls for a whole mess of men and women to date through a lovely blue dividing wall and get engaged before they ever see each other face to face. Don't worry about getting to know all of them though, because the producers sure as didn't. Those who get engaged within the 10-day time limit are given 4 weeks together before their wedding day. On the big day, they have to decide whether to go ahead with it or go full soap opera and ditch their significant other at the altar.
I cannot do this!
Please stop recording this.
And let's be honest, that's what most of us are hoping to see. At the pod stage, there's a ladies' house and a gents' house. If the show is to be believed, they're separated by long rows of pods in which our desperately seeking singles will try each other on for size and work towards popping the question. While both groups settle into their respective sides, they're joined by the series hosts, Nick and Vanessa Lachey. The contestants do a decent collective job of styling it out, but I put good money on at least half of them having no f***ing idea who they are. Nick also introduces himself as...
I'm obviously Nick Lachey.
Which is impressively ballsy for someone whose last charting single was in 2009. Nick and Vanessa run through their manifesto, namely that...
We live in such a disconnected and distracted world. Your value is often judged solely by the photo on your dating app.
Well, we can't all meet our future husband on the set of a divorced tie-in single, can we?
You can have what's left of me.
Enter the experiment, as everybody has very obviously been told to call it on pain of death. The experiment's goal is to prove that stronger and longer lasting connections can be made without physical interaction, which is what all men at strip clubs think is happening. Also, all the talk about shallow dating standards falls remarkably flat when it's being delivered to a room mostly full of people who won the genetic lottery. Show me love is ugly and stinks, and then you can get back up on that high horse. The Lacheys make their exit and only pop up for about 30 seconds each throughout the whole rest of the season. Whatever they were paid, way too much. Then we start meeting our contestants. First up is Shaw King Westley. His quest to marry a woman who will, ironically, overlook his height is cut even shorter when he falls between the sofa cushions or something, never to be seen again. Spoiler alert, we ultimately wind up with 6 couples coming out of the pods engaged, and the first of them we meet is Lauren and Cameron. Cameron claims to be a present-day AI programmer, but his inhuman mannerisms suggest that he time-travelled back from 2029 looking for John Connor. Lauren, on the other hand, is a content creator, which I'm sure had nothing to do with her accepting the first of the show's proposals after literally 5 days. Cameron also mentions that, as a scientist, he's a believer in the experiment because...
It's removing the confounding variables of ethnicity, race, background.
Except they just tell each other that stuff instead of seeing it firsthand, so the entire purpose of the show is basically dead in the water from the get-go. Regardless of all that, after rocketing through a series of emotional pod dates, Cameron gets down on one knee and pops the question to the wall. Our next couple is made up of Giannina, whose middle name is, incredibly,
Milady,
and Damien, whose last name is...
Powers.
making him sound like a mid-tier Bond villain. Giannina spends a lot of time trying to come across as quirky and cute,
thanks, I'm silly.
but only to mask the fact that she's actually nooking futs. Damien, on the other hand, is just a bit bland, and quickly falls into a dynamic where every word he says might very well be his last if Giannina decides to read some absolutely batshit meaning into it. They do a bit of bonding over their traumatic school days, and eventually Damien proposes with a bizarre box-based metaphor which nonetheless Giannina accepts.
Stopped. It's like, this isn't right.
We also meet Kelly and Kenny. Kelly used to be bigger, and Kenny has issues with showing his vulnerability, which might have been interesting things to explore if it weren't for the fact that they're really, really dull. They talk about their favourite children's books, he proposes, nobody cares. Then there's Carlton, who seems the keenest out of all the assembled men to bag himself a bride.
I'm living my best life.
The wheels start to come off fairly quickly when he lets slip a couple of 1950s era wifey expectations and says,
I expect to be pleased as a man.
Yikes. He homes in on Diamond, a professional dancer whose mother, she claims, gave her that name for a reason which I assume has nothing to do with how she trims her lady garden. Carlton does disclose that he has a big secret. He's bisexual, but has decided that being married to a woman is what he wants. On paper, there's nothing wrong with that, but his claims that men can't offer him the love and affection he needs, and women won't want him because of his orientation, are worrying. Regardless, he steams ahead and proposes to Diamond without cluing her into his secret, which is absolutely definitely not going to cause any problems. After she accepts, Carlton claims,
I'm not letting any doubt, any insecurities from the past ruin this for me.
Which turns out to be a resolve with a shelf life of roughly half a honeymoon. The first person we meet from our next couple is ex-tank mechanic Amber, whose general demeanour suggests that her current job is being Batman's nemesis. She's also conceited and volatile, but I'm afraid that if I keep insulting her, she'll find me and break every single bone in my body. Amber's initial mission is to prove that there's more to her than looks, and in that respect, she fully succeeds.
I'm just so off the wall crazy sometimes. Oh gosh.
Because behind her appearance lies an unquenchable and merciless rage, which she's only ever one crossed word from unleashing upon everyone around her.
I would break her face.
Amber's most frequent pod buddy is Matt. He prefers to go by his last name, Barnett, but in reality should give fair warning to his dates by using his official title, Fuckboy Prime. Barnett largely speaks in sex jokes and seems to be trying really hard to give the impression that he's eaten more pussy than an alligator in a cat shelter. Luckily for him, Amber sets her sights on him early and literally threatens physical violence if she doesn't get her way.
If I don't propose to Amber, she's gonna find me outside of here and whoop my ass.
Hey, if it's not in the rules, then it can't be against them, right? Next, we meet contestant Jessica, who is easily my favourite car crash this season, and anybody who's already watched the show will know exactly why that is. Jessica has the voice of Pamela Anderson, and the liver of Mel Gibson, and is often joined on dates by her wingman, Wine. Jessica has only ever dated men who fall within a very strict set of limitations, but at 34 years old, wants to stop the deafening ticking of her biological clock by opening her mind to new possibilities. One such possibility is potential beau Mark, a perfectly nice and normal 24-year-old. His mistake is in assuming that the 10 years Jessica has on him might have afforded her a bit of common sense. Because what would a dating show be without a love triangle? And so it comes to pass that Jessica and Barnett have a little something going on away from their other potential suitors. Perhaps not quite as much as Jessica thinks though, as implied when Barnett wonders,
I don't understand how she could be single at 34. There's gotta be something wrong, right?
oof, hang in there buddy, you'll see. Barnett's issue is that, by his own admission, whichever lucky lady he spoke to last is the one he wants to marry.
It's like whoever I saw last is my number one.
Sensing that he has competition, Mark gets in early by telling Jessica that he wants her. She has a quick sidebar with Dr. Merlot before reciprocating with all the lukewarm enthusiasm of housekeeping staff the morning after a furry convention. As soon as the next day, Jessica's openly having second thoughts. In a heart-to-heart with Barnett, he says,
If this place had nobody, no other guys, and no other girls, I would propose to you tomorrow.
Which she takes as the sweet declaration it most definitely wasn't. At least he didn't say it to Amber, who would have taken that as the go sign to murder every other woman in the house. Jessica also says,
No one has ever said those words to me, that they're ready to propose, that they want to walk out of here being married to me.
Except for Mark, who literally said that to her about 10 minutes beforehand.
I ask you, you want to spend the rest of your life with me? Where's your mind at?
I can definitely see us walking out of here together. I really can.
Barnett hits Jessica with an ultimatum. Make a clear decision, which she decides is code for dump Mark immediately, which leads to both Jessica and Amber being absolutely certain that they're going to walk down the aisle with the same man. The man in question, naturally, is loving the fact that multiple women are fighting for him, but pretends that he's having a hard time deciding for himself. Honestly, it's not the most outlandish excuse, because he does seem like the type to stare into a drawer for a solid hour every single morning before picking out a pair of socks. This all leads to Jessica dropping Mark like he's hot and pretending it's about their age difference rather than her desire to get a good Barnetting.
What the f***?
Barnett himself waits until the next day to pull an Uno reverse, going back on his earlier implications of an incoming proposal for Jessica in favour of Amber. Jessica is not pleased.
Okay, well then you try to do it with somebody else, because I'm f***ing over this.
In a sign of things to come, she then immediately seeks out Amber to warn her off Barnett. Amber couldn't care less, obviously, because all she hears is that her competition just evaporated without her having to ask any of them if they'd like to know how she got her scars.
You wanna know how I got these scars?
Jessica goes crawling back to poor Mark and blames Barnett for something that was definitely at least 50% her fault. He unwisely decides to give them a shot and gets down on one knee. If I was him, I'd have cut my losses and headbutted the wall while I was down there in the hopes of spending the rest of the show in the ICU. Before accepting, Jessica's response is to collapse in tears behind the sofa, which again is a fairly decent window into how the rest of their time together is going to play out. Barnett proposes to all Crazy Eyes, who laughs like a lunatic.
Yes.
Fuck, okay.
Yes. Yes.
In all likelihood because he plays some so far unrevealed role in her next attempt to take over Gotham City. In the end, all 6 couples meet face to face in a moment that's hyped as dramatic, but largely winds up in massive, awkward anticlimaxes. That is, for everyone except Giannina, who keeps grabbing Damien's face like he owes her money, and Amber, who does a kind of drunk thriller dance down the hallway. Then they all head off to the Mexican honeymoon resort where they'll spend the next portion of the show drinking, screaming, and crying, because apparently that's what a modern dating show is. But that will have to wait until the next video. So what did you make of the newly formed couples, and did the show actually do what it set out to by this early stage? Let me know in the comments, and if you enjoyed this video, drop a like, subscribe for more, and if you can, share it with your nearest and dearest. Either way, thanks for watching, and as ever, if you can't be good, be crusty.